Okay, today I want to talk about this novel, The Weightless World by Anthony Trevelyan, published by Galley-Beggar Press, who are one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting, independent publisher in the UK. Their first big success was A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, and I think later in this year they're going to be publishing a novel called Playthings by Alex Phoebe, which I will review, which is a marvellous novel. But today we're talking about The Weightless World. This is a good, kind-hearted, generous, warm, gently eccentric novel. It does something very unusual particularly well, and it may not sound difficult or unusual, but it is, and that is to have a first-person narrative voice of someone who feels very real and but still quite ordinary. Um, Essentially just a regular person. Now, why that's difficult is because often if you write a regular person, a nice, ordinary, kind person, they can be very flat and uninteresting on the page. Um, and then the tendency is to make them quirky and give them sort of idiosyncrasies. But this is not the case with the protagonist here. He's just a kind of ordinary guy. He's a PA to a somewhat eccentric businessman, and it's very difficult to make a book interesting when your main character is just a nice guy, and this succeeds wonderfully. But it succeeds because of the friendship between Stephen Strauss, the narrator, and his boss, a man called S, E-double-S. And in a sense, the novel is quite straightforward. S works for an aviation firm. On his travels, he comes across an anti-gravity machine, and he wants to go and buy it for his business. And his business is in Yeovil, and the anti-gravity machine is in India. And essentially, it is that adventure that the novel deals with. Now, clearly, there are real struggles and tensions between Stephen and S, but actually, the heart of the novel is this friendship and the kind of generosity. And there's a real generosity in S if it's slightly blinded by his eccentricity and desire to find this thing that clearly no one believes exists. And what do you do if you're the PA to a slightly eccentric man who's taking you on a kind of slightly crazy journey? Well, you doubt him, and you try and organise it so he perhaps maybe doesn't have his spirits broken. And this is at the heart of the novel. But of course, the idea of a anti-gravity machine is kind of transformational. I mean, imagine a world where one could extract the properties of gravity. Gravity has properties, or the properties in something which creates this gravitational pull. If you could extract that, a whole world becomes this new lived experience of lightness and weightlessness. So that, in a sense, is a wonderful idea. I'm not going to tell you, of course, what happens, but I think that the combination of this quest for this, transformational machine and the genuinely gentle and kind-hearted relationship makes for a very unusual reading experience. It's not cynical. It's not trying to do anything clever. It's not trying to prove itself. It's storytelling at its most sort of open-hearted, and therefore I think it's a wonderful novel. I mean, I will say, it's a first novel, and as a debut, it's wonderful. I do think probably the next novel will need a little bit more bite, but maybe that's not so. Maybe that's me being conventional, thinking that we need greater tensions in our narrative, because certainly there is no lack of, there's no lack of propulsion in this novel. So anyway, The Weightless World, by Anthony Trevelyan, published by Galley Beggar. If you are intrigued, and you should be, I would suggest buying it. Thank you very much.